Revealed, incredible flight grounded after Black woman CEO's seat stolen. Amazing twist unfolds. Maya Harris stood at the gate, a flush of anxiety creeping over her. She glanced at the announcement board, her heart racing. Every fiber of her being was tense with expectation. Today's pitch in Silicon Valley could change everything for her startup, a beacon of innovation in tech's clutches. Thoughts of her grandmother flooded back: perseverance, dear, always stand your ground. But at that moment, she felt the keen sting of displacement. Your seat has been given to Mr. Chad Reynolds, the attendant said, unable to sense the brewing storm in Maya's gaze. Ruby lips parted in disbelief, raising words that stumbled in her throat. This man, with his infamous disregard for women in leadership, so casually taking her place. The feeling was suffocating. The perception of worth, of how much she had fought for every single inch in this industry, was laid bare in that moment. The investor's presence is simply more essential, the attendant asserted, oblivious to the waves of industry biases that resonated within Maya. A pulse of indignation ignited, tearing at her composure as her internal battle raged on. Maya could either confront this wrong or withdraw into the background, governed by fear, the kind that had often kept women from speaking up. Her grandmother's lessons echoed ominously in her mind, threading integrity with compassion and the incessant weight of societal expectations. She stepped towards the attendant, breaths uneven. That's my seat. I've earned it. Yet, the voice of a budding CEO felt feeble against structures that had long quashed women's ambitions. In that fragile moment, was she merely reclaiming her ticket, or was she challenging an oppressive culture that often undervalued her contributions? The chaos of the airport buzzed on. Caught between indignation and self-doubt, she warred with her emotions. Snippets of conversation reached her ears: Chad dismissing a successful female tech founder. The anguish shifted into outrage and she pulled out her laptop. Fingers danced over keys, crafting a narrative on systemic biases rolled into one torturous experience, crystallizing a fight beyond this single moment. Time was slipping. A gripping fear emerged: what if this wasn't just a setback, but a reflection of a much wider intolerance? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. She sought allies, eyes darting towards passengers watching her ordeal unravel. Have you heard him? Have you seen this? She shared her plight, igniting a flicker of support and awareness among the crowd. Each connection nourished her almost parched resolve, and yet, the gnawing anxiety persisted. Deep inside, she questioned: was challenging Chad worth it, or would this moment crumble her already fragile confidence? As boarding commenced, tension thickened like fog, and with every last call, the stakes soared. Behind the check-in counter loomed another decision, one that could shatter the norm or dissipate all hope. Just ahead, an unexpected twist lingered in the air like charged electricity, demanding her to confront not just a misplaced seat but everything she believed about her place in tech, leaving her suspended in anguish, battling against forces inked in the very walls of the industry. Maya's heart thudded in her chest as the last boarding call echoed through the terminal, wrapping around her like a suffocating fog. Each announcement seemed to taunt her resolve. Am I ready? Muted tones of self-doubt crept in, gnawing at her decision to stand her ground. With a deep breath, she straightened her core, resolute. The crowd still lingered, their expressions shifting from passive observers to allies, their eyes reflecting a blend of curiosity and expectation. In her mind, the disarray at the gate morphed into a greater battlefield. Here was her moment, not just to reclaim her seat, but to redefine her narrative in a tech industry molded by the same biases she had faced time and again. The outline of Chad's smug grin hovered like a cloud threatening to rain on her potential. She deliberated, assessing the weight of her presence against the backdrop of systematic disregard. Moving with intention, she stepped toward the check-in counter, the words of her grandmother echoing like a mantra, "Stand your ground." As she neared the attendant, who now seemed oblivious to her plight, an idea sparked in her mind: she would not only assert herself but consider the broader implications of her actions. It was time to confront the cancer of inequality spreading in her industry. "Excuse me," she began, her voice steadier than she expected. The attendant looked up, surprised. "I'm Maya Harris. I believe I should be boarding the flight." The attendant opened her mouth to reiterate company policy but was caught off guard by the determination etched on Maya's face. "It's not just about the seat," Maya continued, articulating her thoughts with practiced precision. "This is about opportunity, the opportunity that so many others are deprived of because of outdated biases." A ripple of interest surged through the passengers waiting nearby, and Maya could see their eyes narrowing, processing her words. The tension morphed into palpable energy, and she pressed on. "I encourage each of you to recognize the barriers that exist right here, right now. This isn't simply a matter of seating, it's a symbol of the larger narratives that keep driven women like me from access and equality." Chad's dismissive laughter echoed somewhere in the distance, and Maya's resolve burned brighter. Every word she spoke was a declaration and a revelation, a dynamic confrontation with the narrative that had so long been inscribed in stone. She was rising to meet a challenge that extended beyond this moment and into her career and future. Each minute felt like an eternity as eyes turned towards her, a sea of expressions swirling around her. A woman stepped forward, a stranger with piercing eyes and powerful conviction. "I support you. This is not right." Her voice rang clear, and soon, others began to echo their agreement. As she turned to gauge the growing crowd, a pulse of adrenaline surged through Maya. She felt different, a growing sense of power unfurling in her chest. This was more than a pitch, it was an uprising of sorts, a passing of the torch from silence to action. Chad, noticing the shift in momentum, approached. "This is unprofessional, Maya," he sneered, attempting to reassert control. But his words landed flat, the energy around her shifted too dramatically for him to regain his stance. "I'm done being professional in the face of injustice," she retorted, newfound fire in her tone. The internal doubt that had plagued her seemed to fade, replaced by a clarion call for authenticity and courage. And just as she prepared to make her next move, another voice broke through. "Maya, is this about you, or are you ready to lead?" The question hung in the air, a challenge that echoed in the silence. Could she turn this moment into something transformative? With her entire career hanging in the balance, Maya decided, it was time to lead. As she opened her mouth to respond, her mind raced with the weight of her choices, the outcome teetering right on the edge. This was just the beginning. Would she capitalize on this momentum or allow fear to revert her to shadows? The face-off loomed, an opportunity dawning to transcend her current strife and harness her identity in tech for something greater, transcending the conveyor belt of conformity. The moment of truth was here. Maya inhaled deeply, steadying her nerve, aware that the eyes of the crowd were not merely scrutinizing her, they were searching for a leader. What emerged from within her was a blend of vulnerability and resolution. She became keenly aware of the spotlight she had inadvertently stepped into, the weight of expectations pushing against her shoulders like a heavy cloak. Leading means more than asserting your presence, she reminded herself, her thoughts racing like a ticker tape. The words lingered, sparking another resolve. She wouldn't simply demand her seat, she would invite others to join her on a journey toward change. "I am here because I believe we can be better together," she said, her voice cutting through the din. The anticipation that filled the air transformed into applause, an unexpected solidarity that radiated warmth but also elevated the stakes. Around her, those who had once waited passively were beginning to process not just her request for equality but the very essence of their own placid acceptance. Chad's scowl deepened, and his brows knitted together as he stepped forward again, attempting to assert his influence. "This is absurd, Maya. You can't turn a minor inconvenience into a cause, he barked, facing the crowd now palpably energized by Maya's assertion. The tension thickened, she could almost taste it like metallic anticipation. Maya fixed Chad with a look that bore the weight of her journey. This isn't a minor inconvenience for me. This is about a system that remains entrenched because we tolerate it. The sad truth is that I'm not the only one who has faced such indignities, she countered, her voice rising to match the challenge of his dismissal. Moments spent in uncertainty transformed into action as she faced the crowd, a swell of determination engulfing her. I urge you all not to be silent witnesses. If any of you have felt overlooked, ignored, unworthy, realize that you deserve to take up space, too. Her words cut through their collective hesitation, igniting a flicker of hope in their eyes. Yet a small part of her hesitated. Was the crowd merely caught up in the moment, or had she truly struck a chord? Nonetheless, she felt the tide turning not only in her heart but in the hearts of those around her. Suddenly, her grandmother's voice played in her head again, "Every moment is a canvas, dear. Paint it boldly." That thought bolstered her as she paused to survey the room, contemplation flickering in her gaze. What was it she wanted to change? The barriers in their professional lives were only reflections of a more profound societal deep-seated bias. In that moment, she realized this was about building the foundation where others didn't just follow but flourished. I don't ask for you to follow my lead blindly, she began again, softer now, yet unwavering. Stand beside me. Join in demanding representation and respect in every workspace. Together, we can reshape our industry. Chad, still simmering in his frustration, seemed to become irrelevant in the face of collective strength. The room pulsed with equal parts anxiety and excitement, they hung on her every word, their eyes glimmering with potential realization. Maya's adrenaline surged, and with it came an idea: the next steps weren't only about reclaiming one seat or confronting one man. It was about ensuring no woman experienced this humiliation again. I will lead a discussion, she declared, a fire igniting in her belly. Let's take this conversation beyond this airport. Manifest this change in our workplaces and communities. Consider this our first step on a much bigger journey. As cheer erupted, the crowd's affirmation resounded like a battle cry. Those mere moments felt profound, marking the shift from an isolated struggle to a movement poised for evolution. And just as she began the groundwork of her plan, a familiar voice pierced through the noise. Maya, are you ready to risk everything? It hung over her like a thundercloud, daring her to ponder if she could really bear the burden of such leadership. Maya's breath caught in her throat. Was she truly ready to lead, to transform this fervor into actionable change, to make herself a target instead of a follower? The weight of her choices loomed over her, a daunting reality as she stood at the precipice of her own potential. In that fleeting moment, she realized, this was about to change her life forever. Would she take the leap into the unknown or fold back into the comfortable, constrictive shadows of her professional past? Her pulse quickened as her response formed a decision that would set the course of her future. Facing the crowd again, she was ready to step forward or step back. And as the world around her held its breath, she prepared to answer the question that could redefine everything. Maya felt the burning intensity of the crowd's gaze, each individual hanging on her words as if they were threads weaving the fabric of an uncertain future. The question posed to her echoed in her mind, a relentless drumbeat: are you ready to risk everything? She could not shake the sensation that every heartbeat solidified the potential of a new reality, yet each pulse reminded her of the precariousness of that leap. In the midst of the cheering, a flicker of doubt nudged at her. What would risking everything look like? In her past, even minor deviations from the status quo had felt perilous, cloaked in fears of failure and rejection. But at this moment, surrounded by the collective energy of aspiration, she had to confront her deepest fears. Perhaps risk was not merely losing her comfort, but an opportunity to reclaim her voice, her presence. Determined to shift from introspection to action, she lifted her chin and spoke again, "Let us set a date for our first discussion. I want this to be a safe space for everyone to share their stories, to strategize how we can all support each other in challenging the status quo in our workplaces. A woman from the crowd stepped forward, her brow furrowed. And what if we face backlash? What if this isn't well received? The question hung in the air, met with a collective hush. Maya could see the worry etched on many faces, a mixture of hope and hesitation woven tightly together. That risk is part of our journey, Maya replied, feeling an unexpected clarity surge through her. We've experienced backlash for silence already. The price we pay for change might be a temporary discomfort. But if we don't speak up now, when will we? Our voices are our most potent tools. We must wield them. Her words landed with a conviction that felt foreign yet exhilarating. Each time she spoke, the grip of her self-doubt loosened. She felt like a sculptor shaping her narrative in real time, each conversation a chisel carving an expansive perspective on a once restrictive view. Chad, ever the purveyor of opposition, scoffed, "You're playing with fire, Maya. You think this will change anything? You'll be a target, and for what? A fleeting moment of applause?" Maya faced him, determination solidifying her posture. A fleeting moment of applause? No, Chad, this is about sowing seeds of change that can grow beyond my time in this role. I refuse to accept complacency and the disregard we have faced any longer. If I am to be a target, let me be a beacon for those who have felt voiceless. A murmur coursed through the onlookers, a subtle acknowledgement that resonated deeper than mere recognition. Faces once shrouded in uncertainty now sparked with the glimmer of shared purpose. As the crowd discussed and debated logistics for her proposed discussion, Maya felt the vibrant tide of energy knit them closer rather than divide. There was something undeniably empowering about watching people rally around a shared mission, revealing parts of themselves that had long been suppressed. Still, the whispers of doubt loomed like shadows threatening to smother the glow of ambition. Was she grounded in this new initiative, holding on to something substantial? Or was she merely buoyed by the moment's adrenaline, unaware of the abyss that lay beneath the surface? The weight of accountability loomed large as she began envisioning the discussion. Would it translate into outcomes that could dismantle years of systemic bias? Each question left her spinning, her mind recoiling from the enormity of the task ahead. Imagining the conversations they would have, Maya couldn't ignore the underlying current of anxiety. How would she handle pushback from those who preferred silence? Would her leadership inspire them to stand beside her, or would she find herself alone when the real challenges arrived? Are you truly ready to take on this responsibility? She whispered to herself, the last words thrumming through her mind like a heartbeat. Each decision she contemplated could either define her as an indomitable leader or fracture her resolve. As the energy around her surged, Maya resolved to envision the transformative ripple effect of their collective boldness. It was now a confrontation of personal stakes against institutional apathy, an indomitable merge of courage and purpose blossoming within her. But the question remained, would she be too much of a target, and could she endure the weight that came with pushing forward? The answer hovered just beyond the horizon of her mind, tantalizing in its ambiguity as she forged ahead. The path to real change had begun, and with it, a complex labyrinth of challenges lay ahead. Can you truly face your fears and elevate others on this journey? The thought resonated, invigorating yet daunting, as she prepared for the unknown challenges to come. Maya paced in the quiet solitude of her office, the hum of fluorescent lights punctuating moments of reflection. She had spent the past few days preparing for the upcoming discussion that had sparked so much anticipation among her colleagues. Yet the thrill of possibility was accompanied by a suffocating pressure, a persistent doubt that gnawed at her resolve. What if she faltered? What if she failed to be the leader they all sought? In the confines of her mind, she recognized that her personal development hinged on this very moment. The seeds of change began with her, and she needed to be ready, keenly aware that it wouldn't just be her words that defined her but also her actions. Each stifled moment of hesitation fed the narrative Chad had spun about risk versus safety. She felt their breaths weigh the same, stacking upon her shoulders like stones. The first meeting would not only serve as a platform for discussion but also reveal the pulse of their collective strength. Was she prepared to open a vulnerable dialogue, where every opinion, every story, could intertwine with her own? Determined to fortify her stance, Maya sought counsel in books and articles about leadership in times of resistance. She dissected their teachings: emotional intelligence, vulnerability, strategic communication. Visions of her own leadership began to crystallize through their philosophies, yet with each revelation came a new layer of complexity. No longer could she view herself strictly as an employee climbing a corporate ladder. She felt the weight of potential as both a voice and a vessel of change. Suddenly, her phone pinged a notification from the group chat she had set up. A message from Kamala, a brave colleague whose own battles with workplace inequality mirrored Maya's. What if it's dangerous to continue? I've seen people get blacklisted for speaking up. Are we sure this is the right step? The question ignited a fierce internal ambivalence. On one hand, Maya understood the haunting fear of retribution, a fear that shackled many to silence. Yet on the other, the truth of her mission demanded recognition. Her own journey had been marked by instances where the concept of risk stood on the precipice of change. Maya typed a response, her fingers hovering, filled with both conviction and regret. I understand the concerns, Kamala. However, what happens if we don't start this conversation? We have already faced systemic obstacles quietly. Speaking up is a strategy against the persistent wounds that remain unseen though all too real. It's not about avoiding risk but intentionally stepping into it together. As she hit send, a wave of uncertainty washed over her. Would they come to see the importance of daring to speak against the current? Would they acknowledge her growing resolve, or would doubt continue to parade through each conversation they held? Days morphed into a sequence of sleepless nights as Maya rehearsed what she would say, her leadership manifesto, littered with aspirations yet tempered with fear. This time, she resolved to invite every member of her team to share not only their fears but their aspirations too. However, deep down, she questioned her capacity to transform this gathering from a potential pool of anxiety into a crucible of courage. The clock ticked down to the day of the meeting. As Maya surveyed the room filled with teetering hope, she recognized at that moment that she wasn't merely leading a discussion, she was navigating a collective transformation. Surrounded by faces eager, yet apprehensive, she felt something shift within her, a reaffirmation of purpose. As she began to speak, memories of Chad's mocking remarks echoed in her mind. The disdain that questioned her commitment roared silently, only serving to bolster her determination. She addressed the crowd, her heart racing as she engaged with their energy. Today, we're not just talking about change. We're igniting a shift that resonates not only for ourselves but for those who will walk this path long after we have. Yet in that fervent moment, an alarming pang constricted her chest. Could she truly sustain this momentum in the harsh realities of backlash? The answer loomed as thickly as the air around her. Would her intentions serve to embolden or alienate? She concluded her opening remarks and took a breath, knowing that the real journey had just begun, the stakes higher than ever. And just as she braced for the responses, the door creaked open, and a figure loomed in the entrance. Chad. The tension in the room shifted, and all eyes turned towards him. What would he say? Maya's pulse quickened as Chad stepped into the room, an imposing figure that seemed to absorb the very energy she had just conjured. With every eye locked on him, she felt the temporary unity dissolve, replaced by a seasoned tension that was almost palpable. He wore a confident smirk, an expression that sharpened her internal resolve but also incited doubt in the hearts of her colleagues. "What's this?" Chad asked, his voice casually dismissive as he surveyed the gathering. "A group therapy session? I didn't realize we were after a mutual admiration society." Maya took a breath, steadied by the gravity of her mission. The idea of ceding the floor to his bravado felt like a betrayal to the space she sought to create. "We're discussing important changes within our team, Chad. Changes that can foster a healthier workplace for everyone here," she replied, determination creeping into her voice. He raised an eyebrow, curiosity interlaced with skepticism. Changes? You mean the kind that invite scrutiny? Be careful, Maya. Not everyone is a fan of that or, better yet, the consequences that follow. Especially for those who may want to take a stand without thinking of where they stand in the end. Chad's words were blades dipped in poison, each cut slicing through the fine threads of courage that tied her team together. Maya noticed Kamala shift in her seat, the collective anxiety palpable, as if the room squeezed tighter around them. This was her moment. It could either shatter them or solidify their shared commitment. You're right to question, Maya continued, her voice steadying with conviction. But isn't questioning the very foundation of change? We must rise above the fear that keeps us quiet, Chad. If we don't challenge the status quo, we remain stagnant. And that doesn't serve anyone. A low murmur rippled through the gathering, and Maya noticed flickers of agreement, embers of determination beginning to take flame. She felt a rush of clarity in her stance, bolstered by the realization that her voice wasn't merely an instrument of change, it had become a declaration. What if the change you want is simply an illusion? Chad pressed, his tone laced with derision. You want to be loved by all when you decide to rock the boat. That's just how it works. Are you ready for the backlash? The question pierced through the hopeful facade of the room. Maya paused, her mind racing. She had contemplated the implications of her actions inspired by her own resolve and the shadows of those who had suffered in silence. But how could she articulate that journey without appearing naive? Change isn't easy, and yes, there will be backlash, Maya replied, her resolve firming. But enduring discomfort is part of growth. Each obstacle is a chance to cultivate resilience. This is not just about me or any single individual, it's about all of us finding our voice in a landscape that seeks to belittle it. If we fear the backlash, we will never be free. The room held its breath as Chad regarded her. Under the gauzy glow of the fluorescence, it was as if Maya had thrown down a gauntlet, one that trapped Chad between his known tactics and the unforeseen stirrings of collaboration blooming in the team. Really? Chad countered, his confidence wavering slightly. You think it's that simple? Just stand up and make noise? It starts with standing up, she asserted, her hair standing on end as she embraced the uncertainty swirling in the room. It's about channeling our shared experiences into actionable dialogue. I refuse to let fear drive our narrative, Chad. We can reshape the conversation. As her words resonated, the room ignited with cautious nods. Chad shifted from foot to foot, caught in the fraying fabric of his control. Just when Maya thought she might break through, Chad responded with a smirk that stung bitterly. Good luck with that, Maya. Just remember that if you take this route, you might end up alone. I'll be waiting to say I told you so. As he turned to leave, Maya felt an unfamiliar power coursing through her. This wasn't just about narrative, it was about embracing the complexities of leadership itself. The room buzzed with unspoken energy, yet doubt lingered at the edges. Could her message transcend Chad's taunts? As Maya looked into the eyes of her colleagues, she felt a new sense of responsibility settle in her stomach. Faced with the reality of her challenge, she braced herself. What would it take to sustain their interest and courage in the face of adversity? Maya's thoughts raced. Emboldened determination collided with fear. The crisis of confidence wasn't over, it was just beginning. As the meeting continued, she realized the true depth of her challenge lay ahead: the daunting process of fostering resilience within a group, igniting conversations that could either shatter or galvanize. Just as she prepared to dive deeply into their new vision, Kamala raised her hand with a questioning look, her voice barely a whisper. What if, instead of igniting flames, we just end up getting burned? Maya's heart pounded. She knew the answer would determine everything: the direction of her leadership and the survival of their aspirations. Would they risk the flames together? Maya inhaled sharply at Kamala's question, her heart tightening. The room felt like a chamber of echoes, the doubts hovering like shadows waiting to engulf her. Would they truly end up consumed by their efforts for change, or could they rise, transformed and emboldened? She glanced around the room, meeting each colleague's eyes, searching for solidarity amid the tension. We might get burned, yes, she acknowledged, her voice steady, yet fierce. But every fire is an opportunity for renewal. Growth doesn't come without risk. It requires us to dive into the heat, to confront our fears and prejudices. If we stand still in that fear, we become stagnant. I get that, Maya, Kamala replied, her voice more robust now, but how do we guard against the backlash? It's not just about the risks we know but those lingering ones we can't see. Maya's thoughts raced. Her own experiences had taught her that the unknown terrain was often the most treacherous. But it was also the most fertile for growth. That's why we need each other, she responded. We'll create a support system. We'll shoulder the risks together. If fear isolates us, then collaboration becomes our strength. A murmur of agreement rippled through the group, small but significant. It was the first real wave of unity she had sensed since Chad's entrance. Maya seized this moment, feeding off their energy as she planned her next words carefully. Let us allocate time to express our fears not just now, but regularly. Every voice has value, and sharing our concerns can prevent us from feeling alone when the flames heat up. The tension in the room began to shift from cold apprehension towards collaborative warmth. She needed them to understand she was serious. This wasn't just about improving work culture, it was about reshaping their identities as a cohesive unit. Let us form smaller discussion groups, she suggested, emboldened by their attention. We can create spaces where voices, including dissenting ones, can be heard without judgment. This is a call to reshape our dialogue, a team effort to not just weather the storm, but to navigate through it together. Kamala leaned forward, her previous skepticism replaced with a flicker of hope. Would that really make a difference? Could we actually foster resilience out of this chaos? Maya felt the core of her resolve crystallizing. Absolutely. But we have to commit to each other. We can hold each other accountable and remind ourselves why we began this journey in the first place, for ourselves, for each other, and for a proper working environment. As she spoke, Maya realized that the root of her leadership lay not solely in commanding transformation but in nurturing it. Leadership was not just about guiding, it was about planting seeds and cultivating a garden. Sudden determination surged through her, awakening the quiet strength she had yet to fully access. Now, I want you to visualize what an empowered team would look like, a team ready to back each other up, even when the fear becomes overwhelming. Picture sustaining that energy when it feels like it might slip away. The atmosphere shifted again. Maya could see emotions bubbling beneath the surface: doubt, hope, fear, and the glimmer of courage fighting to break free. Chad's words still echoed in her mind, casting shadows. But instead of retreating, she embraced them, they amplified her purpose. She could now see the challenge clearly. It wasn't merely about facing Chad or his criticism, it was about dismantling the barriers that silence had erected over time. But even amid this awakening, nagging doubts creeped into her consciousness. Who would remain when the winds howled? Would the support prove fragile in the heat of fire? What if we face internal resistance among ourselves? Kamala's concern resonated deeply. Maya squeezed her eyes shut momentarily, steeling herself. It was true, the inner dynamics could be as tumultuous as external battles. She would need to remain vigilant, committed, and accessible. For the path forward, Maya knew more than ever that vulnerability was strength, and that often the hardest battles were fought not against others, but within. In that moment, sensing the team's hesitance slowly crystallizing into determination, she vowed to rise to the challenge. Each of us will need personal time to reflect, to understand our own stakes in this journey. It starts now. Let us cast aside the notion of being caught alone in the flames. Suddenly, the gravity of the situation pressed upon her. She wasn't just a leading voice, she was fragile as well. What if her revelation sparked more friction than resolution? Just as the thought settled, another question surfaced in her mind, a new thread of agitation. Her eyes darted to Kamala as the realization hit hard. What if they didn't just face Chad but their own collusions? Kamala, she turned, her voice solid yet vulnerable. What if part of the challenge ahead lies within our own fears of speaking up? What if we are afraid of voicing our truth just as much as we fear Chad's reaction? Maya felt the weight of honesty envelop her as she allowed uncertainty to seep in. She was ready to challenge herself, aware of the potential unraveling before her. But this time, she stood not in isolation, but intertwined with her team, a chorus ready to sing their truths together. As the conversation swirled around her, she knew they were on the precipice of something essential, whether it would be the ignition of a movement or the potential emergence of doubt. The tension thickened. Would they emerge united, strengthened, or would this commitment flicker and fade before it even ignited? The uncertainty loomed. The room remained palpable with tension. Maya could almost feel the collective heartbeat of her colleagues, a rapid pulse that echoed the swirling uncertainties. They were poised at the edge of a chasm, ready to leap into the unknown. Yet, she sensed that for every ounce of courage bubbling to the surface, there were still layers of doubt and fear lurking just beneath. "Let us take a moment to breathe," Maya suggested, her voice breaking through the anxious chatter. She closed her eyes for a brief second, grounding herself. "Reflect on why we're here." As her colleagues closed their eyes, Maya seized the opportunity to turn inward. The confidence she had exuded earlier now felt fragile. What if her leadership did not inspire but instead laid bare their fears even further? Could she really lead them through this storm, or was she merely fanning the flames of discontent? The silence was thick, punctuated only by the distant hum of the office. In her mind, Maya allowed each doubt to arise instead of shoving them aside. Clarifying the truth, she pondered if they were to be truly vulnerable together, she had to admit her own insecurities. She forced herself to imagine standing before Chad again, not as a leader primed for battle but as an individual hesitant and human. "What do we do when we stumble?" she asked, breaking the stillness. "When fear freezes us in our tracks?" One by one, eyes opened, and hesitant voices emerged from the quiet. It felt as if they were sharing weighty secrets, their fears surfacing like submerged rocks in a flowing river. Each confession, each admission of doubt, generated a wave of understanding and connection. Kamala raised her hand, her expression contorted. "Can we admit that sometimes we're more afraid of each other than of Chad? What if we're the ones who hold each other back?" Maya's heart raced at the candor. Here was the raw honesty she had silently hoped for, revealing the dynamics they had tiptoed around, where allies risked becoming adversaries out of fear. "Yes," Maya replied, stifling the tremor in her voice. "We can be terrified of our own reflections in one another. But this is why we form those smaller circles. To cultivate trust, we need to push past our discomfort. I'll start. There are days I dread the thought of leading this team, that every decision I make could tumble into chaos." Gasps erupted around the room, a mix of surprise and recognition. Vulnerability had a color, and it wrapped them in an unanticipated warmth, igniting dialogue that felt practiced yet urgent. Kamala leaned in closer, intrigued. "Really, Maya? You?" "Yes," Maya affirmed, a newfound resolve coating her words. "But I'm learning that embracing this vulnerability helps me grow and helps me understand my capacity as a leader. Each of us holds immense potential, but we need to confront the shadows of our fears together. I want us to lean into our awkwardness, to remind ourselves that this journey is about exploring our truths, not just about voicing dissent against Chad." With each word, Maya felt sparks ignite inside her. She realized that her evolution as a leader was closely entwined with her willingness to be open. Confessions, raw and real, were pathways to deeper connections. The conversation morphed into a cathartic intake of experiences and struggles. Colleagues shared personal anecdotes, moments when they too had felt paralyzed by fear or misjudged the intentions of others. Reflecting on these hidden layers of their dynamics, Maya recognized their power. Each shared experience could be the foundation upon which they could build a rebirth. But looming beneath the surface was the awareness that this newfound openness came with consequences. What if alliances shifted as truths emerged? Would unity hold amid such revelations? The unease churned in her stomach. Each collaborative effort might unearth disparate opinions that shook their fragile safety. The initial flicker of fire she felt began to pulse with an unsettling intensity. "We need to prepare ourselves for any fallout," she urged her colleagues. "It is bravery to uncover our fears, but it demands that we stand resilient, even if we find dissonance among ourselves." A heavy silence settled again, the air thick with unspoken possibilities. Maya internalized the weight of her charge. She had unwittingly invited both unity and disruption into their midst. "We will embark on this journey diligently, but it requires participation. We can only grow stronger when we hold each other accountable." As they nodded, Maya felt invigorated by their collective commitment. Together they faced the horizon, and for the first time, there stood a palpable chance of crossing the bridge that had seemed impossible earlier. Yet, amid the growing warmth of their connection, a voice whispered in her mind, what if, amid all this, Chad would find an opportunity to exploit their doubts? The question loomed, hanging heavy and full of potential. Would their dedication hold fast when the external pressures intensified, pushing each of them towards the very limits they feared most? Maya took a deep breath. The atmosphere vibrated with both anticipation and underlying tension. This was only the beginning. They had merely uncovered layers of a more considerable challenge. "Let us meet again soon," Maya concluded, an edge of determination slicing through her uncertainty. "We'll continue this dialogue, and we will chart our course." Each word hung in the air, a silent pact solidifying, yet the old fears persisted. What awaited them next? Would they prepare adequately for the winds of change that were rapidly brewing on the horizon? The days that followed felt charged, as if electricity coursed through the very walls of the office. Maya kept replaying their last conversation in her mind, the vulnerability that had bubbled to the surface, and what it truly meant for her team. Each interaction with her colleagues now seemed to pulse with uncharted possibilities. Some engaged her with a newfound openness, others appeared to withdraw, grappling with their own reflections of vulnerability. That afternoon, she found herself staring at her computer screen, the cursor blinking in taunting rhythm with her restless thoughts. Reports from Chad's last project loomed in her inbox, an urgent reminder of the external pressure she and her team faced. While the previous meeting had infused her with energy, a nagging doubt whispered that the harmony they decultivated could easily unravel in the hands of their adversary. "Just breathe," she muttered, willing herself back into focus. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. The flurry of activity began with a meeting prep for Friday, a space for her team to touch base, ensure accountability, and brace themselves for whatever Chad had planned. But before she could outline a strategy for engagement, an email arrived from Human Resources. The subject line caught her off guard: concerns about team dynamics. Her heart raced. Was someone undermining their progress? Had one of her colleagues voiced reservations to HR? Maya opened the email, scanning through the brief summary. Colleagues were complaining of tension, worried the discussions of vulnerability had blurred professional boundaries. She could almost hear the shaky undertones of miscommunication. "I can't let this shake us." The thought crystallized in her mind, propelled by urgency. Maya immediately drafted a message to schedule a one-on-one with each of her team members before their collective meeting. If they were to tackle the vulnerabilities she had unearthed, she needed to create safe spaces for individual truths and fears away from the chaos of collective discourse. She printed out her notes and organized a timeline, readying herself for the conversations. The act felt almost ceremonial, a commitment to deeper understanding that she needed to champion within her team. Each meeting would allow her to uncover hidden resistances while reaffirming her dedication to pushing through discomfort. The next day, Maya settled into a rhythm. Each conversation revealed threads of unexpected strength. David shared how he had struggled with imposter syndrome, while Anika admitted she often avoided confrontation out of fear. Maya responded with active empathy, validating their feelings while weaving her own stories into the fabric of their discussions. With each interaction, pieces of the collective puzzle fell into place. Yet tension simmered beneath. Some colleagues were still hesitant. Maya sensed these fears lingering in the air, like an invisible fog that thickened with each admission. She wondered if they were inadvertently reopening old wounds instead of healing. Thus, when she met with Kamala, the energy shifted. "Maya, I appreciate your efforts, but I fear this vulnerability exposes us too much. What if Chad decides to use our admissions against us?" She confessed, her brow furrowed with concern. The weight of Kamala's words settled heavily in the room. "That," Maya replied cautiously, "is the risk we have to contemplate. But isn't facing our fears part of growth? If we strengthen our bonds, we become resilient to whatever Chad retrieves from our conversations." Their dialogue hung in a delicate balance, and Maya felt the threads of doubt tighter. If things unraveled further, could they reclaim their composure before facing Chad's agenda? As their meeting concluded, Maya clenched her hands together, her features hardened with resolve. "We'll need to prepare if Chad senses cracks within us, he will strike. Let us meet as a group. I want us to focus on moving from vulnerability into strategy." In that moment, certainty coursed through her veins. It would be a trial that would examine not just the foundation they had built, but their capacity to refocus and regain control. She could almost picture Chad's smirk, the invader watching for the slightest weakness. But this time, they would be ready. Maya left the meeting room invigorated, yet the specter of Chad loomed larger. Was she fully equipped to channel their fears into a shield against him? More importantly, would vulnerability, transformed into strategic strength, be enough to overcome the challenges ahead? Her heart quickened with both excitement and dread. In the brink of transformation lay perilous ground where trust could easily shift to discord. As Maya prepared for their next gathering, she realized the stakes had escalated. Would their emotional revelations stabilize them or rend their connections further? The pivotal moment approached, dangerously close. She would need to guide everyone straight into the storm. "Maya, are you ready?" A voice interrupted her thoughts, and her stomach twisted at the implication. The time to face the storm came swiftly. How would they navigate the intricate web of their collective vulnerabilities when Chad aimed sharp arrows at their hidden corners? The day of the meeting arrived, the weight of expectation palpable within the room's confines. Maya stood at the front, taking a moment to absorb the nervous energy pulsating around her. She took note of the supportive glances exchanged among her colleagues, yet felt the anxiety emanating from those still wrestling with their fears. Standing before her team, she felt the urgency of the moment. "Today," she began, her voice resonating with determination, "we confront not just the potential backlash from Chad but solidify our bond as a team." The nods of agreement gave her courage, each affirmation adding to her growing confidence like bricks building a strong foundation. Maya could see the trepidation in Kamala's eyes, the flicker of uncertainty that mirrored her own past apprehensions. "Let's remember what brought us together," Maya continued, revealing the passion behind their shared mission. "We all have stories, hurdles faced, and innovations to share. Every revelation prepares us to stand firm against the tide that challenges our existence in this industry." The atmosphere shifted palpably as her colleagues exchanged looks of determination, some shifting in their seats while others straightened their backs, ready to engage. The energy shifted, growing taut with anticipation. Maya prepared to facilitate dialogue, urging everyone to voice their insights about internalized biases and solidarity in facing external challenges. One by one, they shared their experiences. David spoke about being overlooked for promotions. Anika revealed the stereotypes she faced as a woman of color. Even those who had previously been hesitant began to realize the strength that arose when their struggles were acknowledged and validated. She observed Kamala closely, eager to support her colleagues' journey through self-discovery. Their conversations allowed the group to fathom how vulnerabilities, instead of being weaknesses, could forge stronger alliances. Slowly but surely, fear began transforming into shared resolve, a stirring commitment to fight side by side against oppressive forces. Maya's heart surged with pride as the group articulated their mission, to not only elevate their own narratives but to ensure the collective strength they had cultivated could withstand the impending storms. Each voice becoming a deliberate echo, a chorus emphasizing their solidarity. "Together, we strategize," Maya said, sensing the fire igniting within the room. "If Chad aims to undermine us, we respond with preparation. Document every instance of conflict, every challenging interaction. A united front requires evidence. We hold the narratives that define our experience." Heads nodded, and agreements were affirmed. Maya felt a sense of fierce innovation blossoming. Ideas flowed freely as they cultivated concrete plans that outlined steps to ensure mutual support amid adversity. The mood grew lighter, laughter punctuated their conversations, and vibrancy flourished as their fears were openly discussed and reframed. As they strategized, Maya's perspective shifted. Her leadership was morphing into something deeper, transcending the mere act of guiding a team. She was becoming an architect of change, a facilitator of growth not just for herself but for every individual around her. Confidence filled her, each word exchanged drawing her colleagues tighter into an unbreakable group. By the time they wrapped up, plans solidified and support structures in place, Maya felt emboldened. She had spearheaded a transformation not merely within herself, but among a diverse group of individuals who had once feared the force that could separate them. Yet, a lingering thought echoed within her mind: what would happen when Chad met this new collective charge? As the meeting adjourned, Maya was acutely aware of the challenge that lay ahead. She had navigated through raw honesty and vulnerability to discover tremendous strength, but could this incubated courage survive the inevitable tests in their future? With resolve hardening in her core, she inhaled deeply, embracing the unknown but confident in their gathering momentum. Equipped with methodologies to confront Chad's tactics and an entire team unified behind her, Maya recognized that true empowerment rested not only in inspiration but in strategic engagement. The next day would bring a meeting with Chad, an opportunity not just to defend her position but to assert their community's resilience. Each heartbeat thrummed with anticipation. She was ready. Maya embraced her reflection, no longer confined by hesitation. She had discovered her voice. She felt it, a pungent mix of fear and exhilaration that had given way to something greater, strength. In this moment, she had conquered self-doubt and transformed it into a shared narrative of empowerment. "This is it," she reminded herself, feeling embodying the essence of leadership. She would not just stand against Chad, she would stand for something monumental, the unwavering connection that promised to shift the very fabric of their work culture. In every heartbeat lay the pulse of change, a resolved pulse that rang clear. She and her colleagues were well on their way to reshaping the industry landscape, one empowered voice at a time. And with that awakening, she prepared to meet the world head-on. This was her moment, and she would seize it with both hands. She was no longer simply a participant in her story, she was its author, asserting freedom, standing tall at the helm of transformation. This was Maya's incredible journey, crowned by the undeniable resolve to lead. Now is the time to reflect on your journey, to confront your challenges head-on. If you're inspired by Maya's story of courage and transformation, subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm that fuels change and support growth. Comment your reactions and theories about this ending. Sharing our thoughts elevates our journey. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. It's time to spread the message of empowerment and courage. This is the moment to show your support for stories that inspire and uplift. Don't wait even one more second to share.